All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, head women's basketball coach of your East Carolina Pirates, Kim McNeill. Got Shirley Rhodes here, Jared Watkins producing, and Coach, I appreciate you joining us today. How you doing?
No problem. I always love coming out and spending some time with you guys.
And you said it was a busy summer, so thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. Before we get to the summer and moving on to next season, just to kind of tie a bow on last season, winning record, 8-10 in conference play. Probably not what you wanted or as much as you wanted, but how would you kind of summarize last season for you?
I definitely think we underachieved. You know, I thought we had a roster that could have competed a little bit more in conference play. But if you look at some of those games, 3 of them, we lost like right at the end of the game. You know, at Temple, you know, we're up by 3 or 4 with 3 minutes left to go. You know, we take North Texas to overtime. Actually 2, which we love playing overtime with North Texas for some reason. I don't know why. And then we're up by 10, you know, with 6 minutes left to go in the game at home here against South Florida. You know, so those games go the other way, and you have a winning record in conference play, and you get 20 wins, and you're probably, you know, 3rd in the league instead of 7th.
Coach, man, you talked about the new norm off the air before you joined us, and that is roster turnover and having a lot of new players each year. I feel like you did a good job comparably to maybe some other coaches of adapting to the portal early on and making sure that you identified what was out there. I feel like ECU women's basketball has been hit pretty hard lately of players exiting via the transfer portal. So I guess now kind of catch us up on this roster. How different will it look this season compared to last season with all the exits and additions?
Ooh. Where do we start? 9 new players.
Wow.
Never had that in my career. 3 returnees. I had a lot of seniors, you know, from the jump. I had 6 seniors, so we knew we had a lot exiting anyway. But, yeah, we had done a pretty good job dealing with the portal, you know, up until this point. But, you know, our league in women's basketball, the American, was the most hit league from the Power Fours. You know, they just came and like vultures and just suck them up. Obviously, you know, Maya Joyner, you know, is moving on to LSU and had a couple other kids. Kaya Miller's going to play at Georgetown. Pooter, which is Devin, she's going to DePaul. So pretty much all my kids went up. And yeah, 9 new kids. 5 of them are freshmen. You know, I've always been really fond of freshmen. I just think that's how you build a roster. But, you know, I don't know now. You know, these kids, you know, freshmen are leaving, and you got to look at recruiting now as almost a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't really count on kids to stay 2 and 3, 4 years as they used to in the past. You know, Sania Johnson, Morgan Mosley, you know, I told them what they did was an anomaly. They stayed at ECU for 5 years. I don't know if you'll ever see that again. But extremely excited about this group. We're going to look a little different than what we've looked in the past. You know, we've been really post-dominant. I think the last couple of years we've had the best post players in the league. I think that's going to change a little bit this year. We probably going to be a little bit more guard heavy. I'm really excited about our guards. I think we'll be much more up-tempo. Kids can shoot the ball, more playmakers. Probably play a lot more 4-out. At times probably 5-out. My post players are more guard-oriented. But super excited. They'll be here on June 8th, and we're going to hit the ground rolling.
You know, I wanted to ask you because, you know, there have been coaches throughout the American, not just East Carolina, but throughout the American that have talked about in various sports about how these Power 4 schools have been coming in and basically, for lack of a better word, poaching players and enticing them to come to their schools. You know, the NIL, you know, money has been largely talked about. When you're having to recruit, and especially, you know, when you have an exodus of players where you need to get more than just, say, 2 or 3, I mean, how challenging is that, especially with now that everything is connected with that NIL money? How challenging is it to get someone to buy into what you're doing here at East Carolina?
It was extremely challenging. A couple of the young ladies are kids that we recruited in the past.
Okay.
So Taylor Barner, a young lady from the Raleigh area, went to Memphis. Her senior year went to Panther Creek. Senior year tore her ACL, so didn't play at Memphis last year. But I was on her hard and heavy. And so she decided to come back home, made the right choice this time to come to East Carolina and put that purple and gold on. So there was a previous relationship there. Kiana Rembrandt is another young lady from the Raleigh area, excuse me, who was at Charlotte. Decided to spend her last and final season here at East Carolina. She originally went to Illinois out of high school, then transferred to Charlotte. She's finally made the right decision as well, coming back here. And then the other two young ladies, we had Savannah Brooks, a young lady from Coastal Carolina who I think Pirate Nation is really going to like. Just plays both ends of the floor really extremely hard, can score the ball, play defense. Didn't know her, but developed a good relationship very quickly. And then the other one, Kennedy Fauntleroy, is a young lady from the D.C. area who's transferring to us from Arizona State. Coach Jason and Coach Jeff have previous relationships with her and the family. So a lot of kids that we get off the portal are kids that maybe we recruited before or somebody on our staff coached or knew the family. So there are previous relationships there. But, you know, this year was really, really hard because, as you guys know, that the house settlement, you know, if it goes through with revenue share, you know, everybody's throwing out tons of money. And Power Four, they just have a lot of money. They have more money than they know what to do with. And obviously here at East Carolina, we just don't have that type of money. So, you know, right from the jump, you know, you say one or two things and then the money talks happen. And if kids are talking high money, I don't waste my time.
Mm-hmm.
Kim McNeill joining us today, and I love the stories about the kids kind of going away for college maybe and then coming back home, like you said, and you just can't burn any bridges. There's two players on ECU's football team now that left East Carolina a couple years ago and came back, so you just never know, right?
Yeah.
So how about, and Shirley's a Farmville Central Jag, so big My fan, and she goes down to LSU. In those cases, is that just the player decides and doesn't have any communication with you? Are there any talks about, like, Coach, I'm thinking of entering the portal? Or is it basically now the players have the ability to kind of do what they want?
I mean, they can do whatever they want. You know, it depends on the relationship that you have with the players.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been, you know, Mama's talks every summer,
Yeah.
you know, of leaving. And she finally, you know, got the nerve, you know, to do it this year. You know, I wish her well. She did unbelievable things for us here the last 3 years, help us win a championship. You know, her freshman year really helped to change the culture and put East Carolina women's basketball on the map. You know, so just wanted to, you know, her last and final year go and play at the P4 level and see what she can do. So I wish her all the best. I guess she likes purple and gold and likes playing for head coaches by the name of Kim.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
How many Final Fours have you been to?
I'd rather hang out with Kim McNeill than Kim Mulkey.
That is true.
That's me
that.
personally.
I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah.
That is true.
Coach, with the guard-oriented team you plan to have this year, it sounds like it fits well with what you do defensively because you create so many turnovers. Naturally, you want to get out and run anyway, right? So, it sounds like you like this fit with the team you're putting together on the offensive side, already combining what you do defensively.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really athletic team, not a big team. You know, last 2 years we've been pretty big with the Weiss twins and my. Obviously, our post players that we have coming in this year are a little bit more mobile, you know, can do a lot of different things. I'm really excited about a couple of freshman post players I got coming in. A young lady by the name of Zanaya Zealous from West Virginia, about a 6'2" kid. It's going to put you a little bit in the mind frame of a Mama. Not as her ball handling is not as, you know, I guess flashy as you would say with Mama, but an unbelievable athlete, can run the floor, finish with her left or right hand, can stretch it to the three. Just a really good player who had some Power 4 offers, but wanted to come to a place where she felt like she could contribute right away. And as I said, you know, Kiana Rembrandt, another post player that, you know, second team all conference in our league and averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds, you know, so she's already a proven kid in our league. But our guards, you know, we're going to really work this off season. I didn't feel like we played enough in transition last year. And I'm really fond of playing in transition. So right from the jump, when we start practice this summer, we're going to work on just getting out in transition and going. Whether it's rim runners by the post, whether it's 3-on-2, 2-on-1s by our guards. We have better shooters this year, so we can shoot some transition threes, which I love. If you have the personnel to do that, we just haven't had that in the past. But we're definitely going to do those things. But defensively, I think we'll get back to being very scrappy. We fell off a little bit defensively this year. We gave up too many points to some teams, but I think we're going to be scrappy and aggressive, and we're just going to open up our transition game because we're going to force more steals and be able to get out in transition.
Has the game, in your opinion, maybe gotten away a little bit, or at least this was something that I noticed when I watch a lot of women's college basketball, is maybe the bigs are now becoming more, I don't want to say smaller, because you're still going to have that height, but they become more of a hybrid player, whereas they're not strictly just set up on the block and then pass low and then have them try to get an easy bucket that way, where you're seeing more of those post players go smaller because you're looking for speed rather than just a body there down low. Have you seen that transition in college basketball from just your traditional bigs to more of a hybrid one?
Well, I think at the Power 4 level, like you look at the South Carolinas, the LSUs, the UConns, those kind of guys, they can get those bigs, they can sit down and play with their back to the basket. But a lot of kids don't want to play that way anymore. Everybody wants to shoot the three. Everybody wants to shoot the three. Everybody wants to put the ball on the floor. For us, because we are such a defensive-minded team and we play our matchup and we press, a lot of kids that are 6'4", 6'5" can't move laterally that way. I think we were obviously extremely lucky to have the Weiss twins, to have Amaya Joyner who could move laterally and also had size. And I think that gave teams in our league a fit because they also wanted to play with their backs to the basket as well. Sometimes for us, the way we play, 6'2" kids might be the ones that can move mobily. And obviously that's the way we're going to look this year, more so 6'2", 6'1" versus 6'3", 6'4", what we had last year. But a lot of kids, like I said, and just watching the NBA last night, bigs are shooting threes. Everybody wants to shoot the three. Everybody wants to put the ball on the floor. So nobody wants to play with their back to the basket anymore.
Coach, we'll talk about your camps. And yesterday on the show we had former Pirate football player Phoenix Evans on. His daughter is at South Central and plays basketball and volleyball. Brooke Evans, who sounds like a really good player. But he was promoting a football camp, boys and girls, because girls are getting into flag football. Yeah, and it's just pretty cool to see the opportunities now that the girls have in the football game. But women's basketball popularity seems to be maybe at an all-time high. A lot of folks are talking about that now, and women's sports in general. But how about your camps and promoting the women's game? I know you really want to do that.
Yeah, well, we have our 2 camps that we have every year. We have our day camp, which is just lots of fun. We have the little biddies in there. They come till, half a day, and then the older kids. And this camp is more so for kids that are kind of learning, the game of basketball, want to play basketball. And that camp is from June 16th through the 19th. And then the following week is more so for the high school kids, the ones that are a little bit more advanced, a shooting camp that we're doing from June 25th through the 26th. I think it's going to be a great opportunity. All my new kids will be there, all the 9 new players, along with the returnees and Bobby, Jayla, and Anjane. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for our fans to come out and, get to know our players, and then also have some good basketball, learn some fundamentals, and hopefully we can help the older kids, sharpen up on their shots.
That'd be great. Maybe some future Pirates will be attending that. Where do you go to see the best players now to recruit? I mean, how much are you in high schools? How much is it like the showcase, AAU style stuff? Where do you do your recruiting most?
We do both. We do high school and we do AAU. I think you get a more of a true evaluation AAU-wise. I think, the difference between men and women's basketball, if you go to a men's basketball game, there's multiple kids on the floor, that are going to go somewhere and play college. Normally for us, is one player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's kind of hard to evaluate in high school because you're like, okay, they're dominating here, but they really aren't playing against anybody. Versus in the summertime in AAU ball, pretty much everybody on the floor on the team, you know, is going to play somewhere. So you get a better true evaluation of their talent level.
So we've seen South Carolina here in the past, a home and home. Do you got like UConn or LSU or somebody rolling in this year? What's the
Yeah, we're you know, we've got the schedule set. There's still some contracts, you know, that need to be signed. We had a really a local ACC opponent coming, and it interfered with football. The date that we had set, we had a home football game on that Saturday.
Oh, goodness, man.
Yeah, so we're not allowed to play Saturday games when we have a home football game. So we had to cancel that and move that to next year.
Okay.
So we won't have a big team coming in this year, but we will play some Power 4 teams on the road at a neutral site. So we'll start that big game back up next year.
You certainly don't shy away from that. You enjoy the big games.
I do it because, you know, I go back to the year we won a championship. When we went down to Texas, our kids were, they were like deer in headlights. They had never experienced that type of size, that physicality, the 10,000 people in the stands. And so I said, you know, ever since we had that experience, that we need to put our kids in that type of environment at least once a year so that when we do get back to the NCAA tournament, it's not a shocker.
I wanted to ask you not so much specific questions, but more like big picture questions, mainly because, you know, with the popularity, as you mentioned, Clip, with the WNBA, it's really kind of going through the roof. The popularity of women's college basketball in general has really gone through the roof. How excited are you to see, you know, fans coming to see games that maybe in the past they wouldn't have even entertained the thought of buying a ticket to go see a women's college basketball game? So much so that I feel that the parity between, say, your top 4 or 5 teams in the nation versus everybody else is starting to close a little bit. I mean, how excited are you for the game to see this level of popularity?
Yeah, it's awesome. Last year when we went down and played at South Carolina, you know, we get to the game about 2 hours before, and there was already a line wrapped around the building. And even though I knew, you know, probably 99% of those people were there to see South Carolina, it was just still awesome to be a part of that. Because I know when I played, you know, back in the 90s, that didn't happen. So it's extremely exciting to see that. It's exciting to see more WNBA games on ESPN, you get up in the morning and you watch First Take. They're talking about WNBA. They're talking about Angel Reese. They're talking about Caitlin Clark. You know, they're talking about women's basketball, and that's something that hadn't happened in the past. So, you know, do we still have a long ways to go? Yeah, we do, because we need more teams. You know, we need. There's a lot of good players out there, and we you know, they created 2 new teams this year. We probably need about 4 more because there's not enough roster slots. You know, there's a lot of good kids out there that deserve an opportunity to play at the next level and not have to go, you know, to a foreign country to play, you know, to keep playing. There's a lot of you know, great players that got cut this year. You know, Diamond DeShields got cut.
Yep. Caitlin Chen got
cut. A lot of good players got cut. And you look at it, normally if you aren't like in the first round of the draft pick, you don't make a team. That's crazy. So second and third round players normally don't make a team. You know, that's extremely unfortunate. So we do need more teams as some of these players can continue to play. But no, it's exciting, especially exciting here at ECU. When I first got here in 2019, goodness, you know, I could count the bodies in the stands, literally like 50 people in the stands. Now, obviously, it's taken a lot of hard work, us getting out in the community and getting people to come to the games. But and obviously winning helps. But it definitely makes a difference when you look up and you see people in the stands supporting you.
Are you opposed to having, like, say something like, you know, the NBA has like the G League, the developmental league.
Yeah.
Are you in favor or opposed of having a developmental league somewhere between the WNBA, as you said, with the shortage of teams? So a lot of people are getting cut. So their choices are they go into the workforce, they go overseas to play, or if they're lucky enough, they might get signed by Unrivaled, which is the 3-on-3, league. But really, outside of that, there's nothing else. Yeah. So in your opinion, would a developmental league be more beneficial to the WNBA if they were to create one?
It definitely would. I'm definitely in favor of that. And I take one person for an example is Danae McNeill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she averaged 22 points a game for us her senior year, 18 as a junior. You know, and she got an opportunity. She didn't get drafted, but she got an opportunity to go overseas and played in Israel. But obviously the war was going on, so she was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
So she came back home and got an opportunity to go to Mexico about a month or so ago. But that's a kid that should have been playing in like a developmental league, you know, where she could get the experience, get stronger, you know, continue to work on her 3-point shot where, you know, her career might be over. And this is a kid who was 2-time Defensive Player of the Year,
Mm-hmm.
Most Improved Player, first team All Conference, two years in a row, in a very good league that averaged 22 points a game that isn't getting an opportunity to play, you know, at the next level.
Kim McNeill joining us. You can go to Kim McNeill basketball camps at ECU.com and sign up for those camps coming up in June. And Kim, we're up against it, so we got to let you go. I feel like we could go another hour. Or
Oh,
so,
I could talk.
I know,
You and me both.
but let's do it again. But appreciate you joining us today. And I don't know, what's your message for the Pirate Nation? Still a ways to go before basketball,
Yeah.
but what's your off-season message to the fans
Oh,
out
get
there?
excited, Pirate Nation. We're going to be a fast, up-tempo team. You know, a lot of different faces, but some faces I think you're really going to enjoy watching play. Look out for us this summer in the community. We're going to be out doing a lot of things and hope to see you guys in November.
And you want to brag on your kids real quick? How are they doing with everything?
Yeah, Caden's in his final year of Greenville Little League. Can you believe that? 12-year-old. I think he's got 11 more games left. I can't believe it. He's having a great year. I think he's hit about 8 dingers, as they like to say, dingers. And then Gabby, she played travel volleyball for the first time this year
Nice.
here in Greenville. Had a great year at that, and then played middle school basketball and volleyball. So they're keeping me busy.
Well, I hear they're great athletes, but more importantly, people tell me they're awesome kids. So
Yeah.
good work there.
Sometimes.
Coach, we appreciate it. We'll do it again down the road.
Thank you. Go Pirates.